Let's do a little poll taking here. How many of you have kids under 5 years old? Let's raise your hands here. Okay, do you know where they are? All right, very good. All right. Are they with you in the room? All right. How about in elementary school? All right, very good. Middle schoolers. All right, let's have a day of prayer and fasting right now for all of you. Okay. Teens, just teens in high school. Wow. College student age. Some of you have had your hand up every time. I'm really concerned. Or Abraham and Sarah in the room. All right, there you go. Kids out of the house. How many of you are empty nesters in here? We actually still are parents. We still are trying to tell them what to do. All right, there we go. I keep waiting for them to send me checks when they moved out, but it hasn't happened. All right, I think we understand. Did you take the numbers down, honey? You got that? This is my lovely wife, Jerry, here to my right. And my lovely daughter, Alexandra Laing Goman. She is married to Jesse, and they serve in the campus ministry up in Boston. And amen. So we are so glad she could. I wanted all my kids here, and then I just introduce them and sit down and let you hear the real thing. All right, now I'm going to try to work this computer. I'm not sure what I got to do. You're going to see the picture of us here. Okay, yeah, big deal. All right, it doesn't work. Okay, it's not working. I don't know how to do that. Is that it? Yes. All right, thank you, Steve. This is Steve Rivera. He I scroll onto that. Okay, all right. So that'll move it that way?
We'll press it.
Got to press it. Okay. I'm going to be receiving a bill from Verizon, who he works for he did this PowerPoint for me. You don't want my PowerPoints. It's like, what is that? That's me and Jerry. Big deal. You don't care about. But I want you to see the progression of how it works. There are 4 children right there. Can you see them? It's kind of fuzzy. That's at Christmas time. What happened to that picture? Is that wrinkled? Okay. All right. Here they are behind a truck with the best Christian we ever had in the house, Riley. That's the dog. He's in heaven with Jesus. I know it, to be sure. Finest Christian we ever raised in our family, Riley. There's one son-in-law in there and one daughter-in-law in there, but it keeps growing. Oh my goodness, here we go. There they all are. That's all 8 grandkids, 6 adults, and they're going somewhere. 18 of us now. That's a growing family, biologically growing at least. All right, let's move forward. We're talking today about building a strong and close family. You know, we've talked a great deal. Oh, is that helping? See, it's more darkness. All right. We've taught a great deal in our churches, and I'm thankful we have, about marriage, how to build a close marriage. We talked a lot about how to parent children. But we realized something recently. We wrote a new book called Building the 8 Essential Principles of Building a Strong Family. We realized we'd not talked a lot about how to build a family. I did the math, and I'm not good at math, but I think I figured out with Jerry and myself and 4 children, that was a total of 15 different relationships we had to build in our house. And the lights are on and off. I realized that wears me out just thinking about how many people we had to get to be close to each other. Building a family is a little different than building a marriage. There you got one person to deal with. Raising a kid, it's me and you, dude. We got to talk, But building a family, it's multiple relationships, all kind of dynamics of individuals and groupings of kids, and they gang up on each other, and they gang up on the parents, and they split the parents, and we all are in fighting, and it's another thing altogether to build a close family. But let me explain something. If you build a close family, that makes up for a lot of other faults and flaws you may have in your life here and there. If people love the family, and you want to build a family where kids love being there. Yep. And a lot of us grew up in very dysfunctional situations, so we're not sure how that even looks like. The best thing we've got is stuff on the sitcom and TV where they yell at each other and insult each other. That's about the closest we've got on building a family. Oh no, we need to learn how to build a close, loving, strong family. All right, let's see if I can get to the next screen. Let's talk about this. I think a lot of us feel like, yeah, but Sam, you don't understand. My situation is different. We have a blended family. We have my kids, his or her kids. We have an adopted child. I'm a single parent. I had a divorce in my background. We've had a lot of conflict. We have people living in our house. We're not sure who they are. I'm not sure who I am sometimes. Aren't you talking? You of course, you wrote Awesome Kids, right? It was not Troubled Kids in Awesome Times. It was, so that means your family was just really perfect, and God just made it so easy. And we're going to try it with Alexander here. You will hear the truth about our family today. That we were far from perfect and had to work very hard to build what we built. We're thankful by the grace of God. Any good thing came from there. But yeah, Jerry and I were married at a young age, and we stayed together, and all the kids are from our marriage. I understand that. But we also, most of our work, folks, is with people who come from unusual or difficult or not what we would call the perfect or ideal situation. As a matter of fact, let's open up our Bibles to Genesis 34, 35, somewhere in that area. And I just made this up this morning. This is not on the PowerPoint. So you know you got fresh out of the microwave right here, okay? This is good. It's actually Genesis 35. Let's just take a quick look at a family that I would say is far from ideal. And it's the one from whom all the children of the 12 tribes came from. And I've got my dear friend Mike Shapiro here, is of the tribe of Levi. Am I correct, Mike? My fellow elder, formerly we were together in Athens, dear friend sitting here on the front row. He is here to correct me doctrinally if I make any mistakes. Okay. Genesis 35. Here they are. Jacob had 12 sons in verse 23. The sons of Leah. All right, now first he has 4 wives. Can you spell dysfunction? Okay. Reuben, the firstborn of Jacob, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun. Oh, then he had another wife, Rachel. That's the one that he didn't get on his wedding night. His beloved uncle Laban gave him the less attractive daughter on his wedding night. And he woke up. Excuse me, who are you? You thought your marriage started out on difficult footing? What if you woke up with the wrong woman? Okay. I've never said that before. All right. The sons of Rachel. Well, that was Joseph and Benjamin. Now, those, by the way, became his favorite sons. And he's going to give Joseph that nice jacket. And that got him in trouble with his other brothers who had just kind of like straight up denim. And he was like styling. You know, he had the swag. And the other guys were like, dude, what have I got on? You know, let's sell him into slavery. Okay. The sons of Rachel, Joseph. Then the sons of Rachel's maidservant. Oh my goodness. He got involved with, oh my. Bilhah, Dan and Naphtali. The sons of Leah's maidservant, Zilpah, Gad and Asher. That's the family out of which the nation of Israel named its tribes. Do you realize God works with us? He takes us where we are. I want to encourage some of you today. Some of you probably entered into this room. You're just discouraged showing up here. Like, Sam, we're already going through so much. We've had so many losses. We've had so many defeats. There's been divorce. We've had separation. We've yelled at each other. Children have walked out of here. We've had some that didn't make it spiritually. I want to give you a little word it's back in Genesis 13. Right after Abraham's nephew Lot kind of walked out on him and left him, the Bible says to Abraham, he says, lift up your eyes from where you are and look around. He said, all this land belongs to you. That's back in Genesis 13. I'm going off my notes here, so you're going to have to look it up yourself. It's not up on the PowerPoint. Genesis 13. I want you today, whatever your situation may be, however much pain you may have borne, however many defeats that you may have felt like you did and you inflicted, and it was or were inflicted upon you, before the church, in the church, around the church, in your own household. Start where you are today, knowing that God's grace is greater than anything that's ever happened to you or that you have ever done or that has been done to you. I want you to believe that a lot more than the amens I just got. I want you to believe it. I think believing in God's grace is one of the most challenging aspects of our faith. Many of us believe God is powerful and awesome, but we don't believe He loves us or likes us that much. God loves you and likes you. He delights in you. You say, but does He know all my stuff? He knew it before you did it. He shaped you in your mother's womb. Look at the heroes in the Bible. Look at what they did. And God's grace. God, we're going to see in a minute here that God even used their sin to bless their lives. He is so much smarter than the devil. He can take what the devil does and turn it around and bring good in your life. You're saying, brother, I don't know how he did it. You're going to see it real fast. I got to roll here. All right. You know what happens? They don't like Joseph, or they don't like Joseph that much. He's the accountant. He's coming and telling them, you guys aren't doing a great job. They say, let's sell him into slavery. Well, they're going to kill him. One of the brothers is really nice. He says, no, let's sell him into slavery instead. Yeah. One brother, oh, wonderful choice. Make your choice there. They send him down to Egypt. You know what happened. And I was going to read all the places in the Bible where these people cried. Do you realize throughout the book of Genesis, we find Joseph crying a lot? Wouldn't you? You'd been sold into slavery. And so he does all right. Comes out from running the prison to run number 2 guy in Egypt. I'd say that takes care. God took care of the young man who didn't do so well, or his brothers didn't treat him right. And he's number 2 in Egypt. Then all the rest of his family is up there starving to death. And one of the great lines of the Bible, his daddy looks at all the other boys because they sold off the smart one. He says, why y'all just staring at each other? Your kids ever do that? They just sit around staring? He says, why y'all just looking at each other? Go down to Egypt and buy some food. You know what happened? They show up. They don't recognize Joseph. He's got all his Egyptian do on. He's got eye makeup. He's got a gold hat on. He's looking like this, and they're all like, they're coming in there shabby, And what does Joseph do? I'm not going to have time to read it. You know what he does? He goes in the back room, finds a room, and starts crying. Have you had things happen to you 10 years ago and somebody shows up and you want to go in the back room and start crying? That's how family is. Things happen and it can get you crying in like 3 seconds. Because you care so much. And it hurt what they did. He plays with them a little bit, sends them back. They come back in. He talks to them again. And they don't know he speaks Hebrew. He's sitting there looking very Egyptian. And they're talking. They said, all this is happening to us because we are guilty of our brother, selling our brother into slavery. You know what? Joseph left the room and he said he cried so loud everybody could hear him in the whole house. He just broke down crying. Has your family hurt each other that much? Where you cry so much that people are listening from in the neighborhood. They're so brokenhearted. These are Bible heroes. So stop writing yourself out of the kingdom here this afternoon. Stop it. You're in the kingdom of God. You've made some mistakes. God loves you, and He's going to bring good out of it. You know what happened. He finally revealed Himself to them. They all broke down crying. All those knucklehead brothers broke down crying. They were so sorry. And then they go tell his dad. You know what his dad had said at one point? They tried to console his father when they went and told him that. They said, here's this bloody jacket. What happened here? He said, my son was killed by a wild animal. And he went into mourning. And it says in the Bible that Jacob said, they tried to comfort him. He says, no, I will never, in essence, he says, I'll never be happy again. I will go down to my grave in sorrow. Some of you feel like that's where you're at today. Sam, I'm sorry. I'll never be happy again. I'm not going to make it out of this. When something happens in our family and our children, it can be so heart-rending. You make the statement that he made. He said, no, it's in 37:35. In mourning will I go down to the grave for my son. He said, I'm not going to be happy. But you know what? They come home and they tell him, Joseph's alive. You know what it says in Genesis? His spirit revived. Here's my feeling. Some of us have literally lost children physically. Others of us have lost them spiritually. There will come a day, I believe, when your spirit will revive. God's going to bring some good out of it. He's going to show you. You don't know how. It'll be amazing. And so he shows back up, and it says he and his son hugged. It says they embraced and wept for a long time. And then after he died, the brothers came back. Now you're going to get us, right? You're going to do us in that Daddy's gone? He said, no. He said, you meant it for bad. God meant it. He said, you didn't send me here. He said, God sent me here. Those evil brothers sent him there. He said, God sent me here to save your life. God is working even through your own sin. I'm not saying go sin. Don't. Sam Lang said I could go sin and God would still work. That's not what I said. Thank you, Mike. Mike was about ready to correct me. No. But he brought good out of it. It's an amazing story of a family through its ups and downs. Isn't it great how the Bible's honest about the people in it? Okay. First things first. How do I get here? All right. So life may not be ideal for you. We got to get that straight. Principle 1. Most important thing. We always do this in just about any book we write about marriage and parenting. Put God first in your life. First principle. Put God first. And I'm going to let Jerry, and I'm going to actually hand the mic down here, I think. But it actually, when Jesus asked the greatest commandment, he was actually quoting Deuteronomy 6. And let's read it together. What's the most important thing you'll ever do to build a great family? Love God more than anything else, including your family. Love God more than you love your husband or wife. Love God more than you love your kids. Love God more than you love this world. Money, job, fame, popularity, sports, anything. Love God passionately with all of your heart. And it says in the book of Deuteronomy, then you'll be able to express that to your children. If I can find it. Okay, see, it's because it's not on PowerPoint. I got to actually flip through my Bible to find all this. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Jesus said this is the first and great commandment. That's Matthew 22, 37 through 40. With everything you've got, the greatest passion in your life. If your children see my mom and my dad, or if I'm a single parent, my dad or my mom, they love God first. You said, but one of the parents doesn't love God. I'm the only one. You love God. You do it. One person in any situation who loves God is the change agent. Joseph was about the only one doing well spiritually in that whole family. And God's got a foothold, a toehold, and saved the whole crew. So nobody else will change. You keep growing. You keep changing. Don't sell out on God even though you're in challenging situations. And God, that gives God a chance to work. Let's put God first. Now, here we go. Let's get me off here. Give this thing to my wife and child.
Keep moving that. Okay. I think, honestly, one of the great needs in our church today, but also it is the greatest need in our families, is that a lot of us, it's very easy for us to have become good church members. But we've lost our zeal and that love, that deep love and gratitude toward God. You will not be perfect parents. We can guarantee you that. But your children do know whether what you have is real or not. The most important thing for them to see is that you genuinely are trying hard to make Jesus Lord and to keep Him there. Most of us, we need to go back almost to the day we were baptized and remember that commitment we made, Jesus is Lord. But it's not something you make one time. Don't feel bad. There may be some of you right here today that will be talking and you're going to be convicted because you're going to feel like, wow, I am not where I used to be. You know how long it takes for you to change that? 3 seconds. A good, long, quiet time prayer. You can go in the bathroom right after we're done and just have a prayer and just recommit your life. And you're going to do that. You're going to do it over and over and over again as you raise your children. Our kids did not see perfect parents, but they did see parents that kept getting up, dusting ourselves off and trying harder again to give our lives to God, back to God. I remember when Elizabeth was a little girl, I remember overhearing her. I don't even remember who she was talking to. Somebody saying something to her. Maybe they saw my Bible sitting out or something, and I heard her over just sort of whispering to one of her little friends, "Oh yeah, my mom, she prays a lot." That was important for them to see that. Do you have anything to say?
The second most important thing for those of you who are married in here today is to, first on God, secondly, you build a strong marriage. What a lot of people do when they have kids is they make the mistake of neglecting their marriage. And the kids become the center of the universe. Back in the 50s, kids were not the center of the universe. You kind of fed them and locked them in their room and, told them to do their homework. That's how I was kind of raised. Shut up, go do your homework, get in the backyard, play. Now, my goodness, it starts when they get those little plastic thrones that they sell now that grandparents don't even know how to work those things. They're like 17 buttons just to get a child, get them in the car. You got 14 bolts to put in. I'm like, can you just put them in the foot of the car and I'll drive carefully? How about that? But I would never do that. But now, from parental-centered family, now we've shifted, and some people have at least, to child-centered. And the world is centered in children. Pretty soon they're going to wake up one day, oh, I'm not the center of the universe. There are other people out there besides me. Oh, have a great marriage. Next to loving God first, the next thing you who are married will do best for your kids is build a strong marriage where you really deeply love each other, and they know that you do. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Hi. Well, yeah, I think when I think about my family, I think about how my parents, God is the center, but my parents' marriage really dictated how our family ran in a lot of ways. And I remember when my brother, a couple years ago, it was their 35th anniversary, and my brother wrote this kind of story about their marriage and about how they were both, they started out in love with God, and then God brought them together, and then when we all came, they kind of squished us in the middle of all that love. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a weird analogy, but it's true. Like, that's how I felt growing up. And, I think my parents' marriage, it was something that, I admired as a little kid, and it always gave me a lot of safety because I knew my dad, you talk to him for 5 minutes and he's just talking about how amazing my mom is. And for a little girl, you're like, wow, I want my husband to feel that way about me one day. And that's an amazing gift. And my mom was the same way. And, there were definitely times where they would be irritated with each other, and especially driving to church, that's always when it happens. And, but, they never, there was irritations, but there was never turmoil around us. And I feel so grateful for that. And I'm sure now being married, I'm sure there was turmoil, but it wasn't in front of me. And there were conversations that they had independently of us, but they kept their marriage really strong, and they always talked about each other with so much love and so much respect, so that the four of us, the four kids, always felt like, man, we can rely on this. We can rely on them, and it taught us even that we can rely on God. So.
Sam mentioned a lot of times when the kids come, that is when the marriage kind of takes a back seat. And I remember specifically different times as we were raising our kids when the marriage just kind of got a little bit okay. Thank goodness Sam was always the one that refused to let it just be okay. But there were a number of times as we've gone through the 40 years that we've been married, 42 years, that we had to just kind of decide all over again to give our hearts back to each other. So if you're sitting here thinking, well, our marriage has been pretty stale for a long time, you can change it. You can change it. Just like I said, you can start loving God again. You can decide to give your hearts back to each other. And it's real important to do that over and over and over again.
One thing I would just say is this is free, no charge for this. Do not yell and argue with each other in front of your kids. Don't do that. You say, well, bro, that's just being open and keeping it real. You know, there's a difference between openness and spiritual nudity. Can we get that? You got to solve your issues with your spouse, but do that in private. If they're 3 years old or 13, they're not quite able to process that you really don't mean it, or maybe they think you did, and it really affects their security level. Our kids knew that we didn't agree. So if you do, now what if you do say something you shouldn't? You know what I did? I'd gather the whole family up and say, everybody come in. Dad's got something to say. I'm sorry for the way I just spoke to your mom. That hurt her feelings. I am so sorry. It probably hurt your feelings. Mom, I'm sorry. Children, I'm sorry. And any of us would do that, though. That we did something in front of everybody, or everybody knew about, we knew it hurt everybody. And so we want to fix it. I'm not saying we went around confessing like a bunch of people in a monastery or something, but nonetheless, and I'll discuss the monastery issue in 1 second. That is, keep your romantic life hot. Jerry says, how does he do it? He gets to romance and marriage from any biblical topic you give him. Because I understand how important and godly and righteous this is. I've got a whole book on it, Song of Songs in the Old Testament. Keep the love life going. I want my kids to know this is happening. Not at the moment, but I'm just saying, oh boy. All right, let's move on. Principle 3. Principle 2, family fabric. That's what we're talking about. Okay, there's 2 screens up here. I'm all off. Look in Luke chapter 2. I'm going to read one of these. You can note these down in your notes. We got to realize to build a family, you've got to weave those threads together into a pattern, into a fabric. It's creating what I would call, there's another word for it, it would be rhythms. It would be customs. It would be a schedule. There's some sense and order to your life. There are things that you do as a family that you do together, that are on a daily basis, but also a weekly basis or a monthly or yearly type thing. And we'll explain that. But a lot of us, we allow our family life to be dictated to by job and school and all of this. They're telling us how we're going to spend our time. No, they don't. Jesus is going to tell me how to spend my time. Do I got to have a job? Of course I do. We do go to school. Yes, we do. But there's a lot of discretion in what we do to allow all that to control us when we're out from behind those doors. You with me right there? We've got to build rhythm, stability, and fabric. Kids love it, a sense of this is our family. This is us. This is what we do. And it will be stuff that you do that nobody else does or they think is just kind of stupid even. That's all right as long as it's godly and basically in the realm of somewhere between Genesis and Revelation and righteous. Do it and make it fun and a part of your life where this is our family. Just a little snippet of Jesus' life. What did Mary and Joseph, what was like in their house? Look in Luke 2:41. Every year, his parents went to Jerusalem for the feast of the Passover. You realize that's kind of like you coming to Youth and Family, or you going to the big conference in San Antonio or in New York or in St. Louis. It's things we do as a kingdom. We go. And this is important. We see people from all over. Wow, they did it. They went to the Passover every year. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the feast according to the custom. And when Jesus went to preach in Nazareth, his home synagogue, what does it say? He went as was his custom. Jesus went to synagogue every week. We know you can start going through the motions of going to church and stuff, but let's go to church and have the motion and put our heart into the emotion and it'll be just fine. We'll talk about that in a minute. We need fabric and a sense of what we do and some of the stuff we need to do. So I'm going to let Jerry and Alex share about that, okay?
Okay. What do we mean by fabric? Some of these things are just routine. Just routine. Kids, any mother that's had a baby, you know it's unreal the way children are programmed to crave routine. This is from infancy. Most of you that have ever nursed or fed a newborn baby, they wake up almost to the minute. Every 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever it is they usually go. I mean, they have a pattern. They fall into they start rubbing their eyes to take a nap at the same time every day. Roll with that. It shows us that we're programmed for some routine. Now, some of us are real organized people. I have to confess, we are not. But we, even as sometimes loose as we are, we have certain things that we always did. We always had dinner together. At least probably 4 or 5 nights out of the week. We always had dinner together. We started that when we first got married before we ever had children. And it was a time where our big thing with the kids was feet out front, bottom on the chair. Nobody could sit at the dinner table ready to make a run for it. That's not the way we did it. It didn't take long. It wasn't an elaborate feast every single night, but it was time that we sat down together and shared a meal and really shared a day. The studies are being done now that are showing families that have dinner together on a regular basis, the kids make better grades, the families are less likely to split up, the children are less likely to have divorces later. I mean, they're less likely to get on drugs by having dinner together. Maybe you fill their stomach up, they're not looking for something else. I don't know. I will say that having dinner together with our family, one of the reasons they've all learned to be expressive and able to communicate, I really believe it was from family dinners together. Because we learned how to converse. We learned what was not proper conversation, and we learned what was the right way to talk. We would save up things of what to talk about. We have some people in our church that are trying to learn how to have dinner together. They said when they first started, they just sat at the kitchen bar and all of them had dinner and they just looked straight ahead and it was like they were all in prison. So they're learning how to have regular dinner. They don't know. They've never done it. They've never seen it. It's very awkward for them. So what the wife has done, they now sit at a table. She has it's a little vase that she decorated all up, and she has all different conversation starter questions that are suitable for their children who are like 5 and I think 8. And different ones take a turn drawing a question out, like, what did you do today? Or like, what is your favorite thing in the world to do? Who is your favorite person? Just whatever. You can have fun with it, make it silly. But I've noticed the whole family's happier. This is family fabric. Sometimes it's making birthdays special. Doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Doesn't have to take a lot of time. But we would always talk about the birthday person, and everybody would tell what they loved and why they were glad that one was born and a part of our family. Maybe the way you do Christmas, but it's making things special and having a rhythm. What it does is it gives your family an identity. This is us. This is the Langs. This is the way you're going to do things. And we'll all do it a little differently.
I think this is one of my favorite things, even to this day. When my family all gets together, it still feels like us. And that's so special to have that, even, now that we're all out of the house and married and having kind of, our own families and lives. But I think one of my favorite traditions that we have is sharing about the birthday person. And we, now we kind of share a lot, like Father's Day, Mother's Day, Valentine's, I don't know, any day, we're sharing. And I think the thing I love about that is it taught me and my siblings how to be expressive with one another. And I think, when you're 10 and your older brother is driving you crazy and trying to boss you around on his birthday though, and you're trying to think, okay, what's my favorite thing about him? All of a sudden, you start remembering, oh yeah, he is really funny. I like that about him. And oh yeah, he stood up to me, that mean kid on the bus. I like him, and you start really remembering, oh, I appreciate my family. I appreciate my mom. I appreciate my dad. And I loved those moments. I think my dad and my mom would always share about us too on those days. And it's funny, I'll talk to some friends and, they can't totally remember a time where their dad has cried. My dad cried every single birthday, every time he would share. And it was my favorite thing, we loved it. And David would cry, my older brother. They were the criers more than anybody, and it was wonderful. And I think, though, that it taught us how to be expressive with each other. And it taught us to remember why we're family and to remember what's so special about these relationships. And I think that's, those moments really kept us being so close throughout the year.
It takes effort to get this stuff started. This may be something you've never done. If you've ever been around us, you've heard us tell you to do this. But a lot of people just kind of, we let life happen to us. Honestly, it takes effort to establish these things. And it takes, if at all possible, if there is a mother and a father working together to both of you make it happen. One of you sometimes is going to be a little bit weaker at following through on this than hopefully the other one is. But together you can make these things happen. But it does take some effort. It doesn't always start out real naturally, but it is important and it is worth it.
Yeah, I would say that you just kind of decide, okay, we're going to, this time for birthday, everybody's going to share about Alexandra and how much we love her. It may seem even a little awkward or a little artificial at first, and you may have been having a bad day when you start. But, words are powerful. And when we begin to express them and say what we feel about somebody, we begin to remember why we felt that way. And instead of focusing on all their faults, and all the ways we're hurt and all the things we're mad about, we begin to think about all the good things. And isn't that what Paul said when he said, whatever things are true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, if there be any such things, think on these things. It's sometimes you have to do it even if you are a little bit not in the best mood. But your mood will follow what you think about and what you talk about. And your emotions will come right along behind your words and your mind. Okay, so let's work on this. It may seem like you're kind of, you feel like a little klutzy or a little bit awkward, or is it even, we're faking it. Fake it till you make it, and you'll get there, all right? All right, I think I got to go change this thing up here. All right, oh, this is going to be interesting. Let me walk by you here. All right. Yeah, we planned this all out to be so smooth. I tell you, I'm just so smooth. Okay, here we are. All right, what's next? Boom, shakalaka. All right. Oh, my son David, he's going to talk to us. You want to see the Hollywood quality of our videos in our family? You're about to see it. David actually looks 47 years old in this. He's not. He's about 32, and the sun's shining bright off his forehead, and he looks like he needs to shave. But nonetheless, I love you, son. Heart-to-heart talks, okay? He's coming up here in a minute. Let's, you don't see him. I see him. There's two screens on here, okay? I got to warn them for you, David. Look in Proverbs 23. We got to learn to talk heart to heart. There can be a lot of words going on in a house, but until you're speaking from heart to heart, you're going to find that you can't be close to each other. We got to learn to speak heart to heart. The degree of closeness in a family is directly related to how deeply you talk to one another. And a lot of us grew up not knowing how to express love to anyone. I never heard the words "I love you" spoken to me until I went to church when I was 19 years old. I went home and told my own mother I loved her. She almost fainted. What is it? And I'm like, Mom, my mother loved me with all of her heart. I knew that, but in my family that was assumed and not said. Some of you grew up in families where, oh, I love you all the time. Others of us like, you don't say that. I had to learn in God's church how to be expressive and how to say those words and how to speak heart to heart. I didn't know how to get out what I was feeling. Didn't even know what I was feeling. As many of your teens don't know, particularly your boys, they answer in monosyllabic grunts. What? No. They, believe me, it's in there, and you need to learn how to talk to them, and you need to learn how to draw them out. Let's look in Proverbs 23:26. This is a talk that David's going to talk about in just a minute with me that we had. My son, give me your heart, and let your eyes keep to my ways. A lot of us want to control our children's behavior. Of course we want them to act right. But controlling actions is not the primary way to raise children. Yeah, when they're 2 years old, you got to pick them up and keep them away from the electrical socket. I get that. But the older people get, the more you've got to work on a heart level and talk about what they're feeling, what they're thinking, and get them to talk to you about that. One of the biggest mistakes we make as Christian parents is just trying to straighten up behavior and not really know what our children are thinking and feeling. That produces exasperation, and it produces a lot of frustration. So you have to have that talk. Look in Proverbs 20 and verse 5. This is a key verse. It says a man, but it's also a child. The purposes of a man's heart are deep waters, but a man of understanding draws them out. You got to draw your children out. Talk to them. If you sense that they're sulking, you sense they're hurting, you sense something's bothering them, what is it? Not, what is it? It's, let's talk. Let's talk heart to heart. You can see the questions I've got here. A lot of we make the mistake, particularly as kids get older, of talking at them. Ask some questions. And then what happened? Rather than they tell you, Dad, I didn't do well. You know, I had an argument with a kid at school today. I got in trouble. What do you mean? What do you mean? You don't ever do that. I told you to stop that. Well, really, what happened? What went on? Tell me more. Rather than just jumping. How'd you feel about that? What do you think about? Help me understand. And there's the kicker. Is there anything I've done to hurt your feelings or upset you? It's a good question to ask kids sometimes. I think we got to learn to draw them out. I'm going to let David talk here and see how this goes. Let's go to the next thing here. He did these in segments. There, it's going to be jerky. Okay. Here we are. David, you talk to us? Am I supposed to do something else here? Yeah, I'm hitting the arrow. On the bottom of my left. Thank you. Somebody technologically saved your dad. There, oh, there it is, right there. Steve told me exactly what it is.
I think having those good talks started when we were young with simple things like dinner time every night, sitting down, turning the television off. We weren't allowed to have books or newspapers or iPods or cell phones or anything at the table. We just had to talk. How was everybody's day? Every week or every other week, we'd get individual time with Dad. And that could be as simple as going and throwing the football in the backyard or going to McDonald's or going to catch a movie. For me, I needed to have fun with my dad before I was ready to talk. And sometimes it was easier to talk in the car when I didn't have to make eye contact because we could just be driving. I could be looking out the front window talking. Talking with Mom was kind of every day, in the kitchen, in the car when she would pick us up, all the time.
All right, see, he did these in minute segments, so I'm going to have to keep doing this. All right, let's go to the next one. Boom. All right. Boom.
There's one infamous talk that I remember, the oatmeal talk. I was a teenager. In fact, I was already a disciple. But I guess in hindsight, in the preceding months leading up to this talk, my dad and I were starting to just bump heads. I just had a lot more of my own opinions about how everything should be done. So one morning I was trying to make my oatmeal, and make a long story short, my dad was trying to tell me how to make oatmeal. And I said, oh no, I know how to make oatmeal. And anyway, again, long story short, my dad just said, let's go out on the porch and talk. And he had me turn over to Proverbs chapter 23 and read, starting in verse 23 or 22. Listen to your father who gave you life. Do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy the truth and do not sell it. Get wisdom, discipline, and understanding. The father of a righteous man has great joy. He who has a wise son delights in him. May your father and mother be glad. May she who gave you birth rejoice. My son, give me your heart, and let your eyes keep to my ways.
All right, we're going to keep going. All right, there's more.
So he had me read that scripture, and the conversation was not about how to make oatmeal. He talked to me about just how he felt like I was pulling my heart back from him. It says, my son, give me your heart. And he felt like we were just arguing, and he wanted to be close to me, and he didn't like the direction that our relationship was going. And so as I read that scripture, he had me read it out loud, and when I got to the verse about my son, give me your heart, I started crying because I knew my dad had told me several times growing up that he wasn't close to his dad before his dad passed away, and that it was very, very important to him that we stay close and that we talk. And so when I read that, it cut me to the heart. I knew that Dad was right, that we hadn't been as close, and we just had a great talk that day and decided to work on it. And it didn't fix it all right away, but we did work on it, and we did resolve to stay close and keep having good, open communication and not arguing. I also remember just all the good talks we had during my Bible studies. I would do my Bible studies with the teen leaders, but then I would come home and have good talks with my dad and my mom, my whole family, in fact, about my Bible studies. And my dad was really the one that helped me kind of drive home the sin study, because he really helped talk to me about, look, if you don't change your life now, let's talk about where your life is going to be in a couple years. When you go off to college, what kind of man are you going to start to become? When you want to get married a few years down the road, what kind of husband are you going to be? What kind of dad are you going to be? And he really helped talk me through those things in my Bible studies. I remember when we took a college visit up to Virginia when I was visiting colleges. My dad took some time off work and we drove up, spent a couple days, and we just had some great talks in the car on the way there about his time in college and what his hopes for my time in college. And I remember a big talk before I left for college, and I remember my dad crying and telling me how proud he was of me and telling me about, again, his time in college and his dreams for my life and how much he believed in me. Really, I would just say, don't give up, especially with boys, adolescent boys. They might not want to talk, or they might not think they don't want to talk, but they need to talk, and they do want to talk. Talk about what they like, whatever that is. Let them talk about it, and then really listen. Actually listen. I think sometimes parents, we don't listen. We just want to talk. But listen, and as they talk about their interests and their hobbies and their sports, they might drop something in there that gives you something that you can follow up on. Ask questions, open-ended questions. Sympathize with them. Say, yeah, I remember feeling the same way when I was a teenager. You're not crazy for feeling that. I felt that too. And then share your own thoughts and feelings. Share your past. Share what it was like for you when you were a kid. Be vulnerable. Let them know that you struggled as well. And the more vulnerable you can be, I think the more vulnerable they'll be with you. Of course, an appropriate level of vulnerability for age appropriate, but don't give up having those good talks. So important to keep the lines of communication open. And ultimately, they're going to learn how to talk to God as they learn how to talk with specifically their dad.
Well, one thing I just wanted to add, all four of us actually, when we became Christians, we all had a lot of questions about our faith. And, I went through about a period of a year where I wasn't so sure if I believed in the validity of the Bible, and which as a 13-year-old, I don't know why I was thinking so deeply, but I was, and that was good. And I was questioning a lot of things, and David did the same thing, Elizabeth, Jonathan too. And, I appreciated that I could talk to my parents about those things, and they didn't freak out. Because I was freaking out. I was like, I don't believe in the Bible. Who am I? What am I going to do? Can I become a Christian? All my friends are at church. What do I do if I don't believe in the Bible? I was terrified of the questions that I had. But I also knew that they were real. And I knew that I couldn't ever really become a Christian and still have those questions. And I think I just really appreciated how I could talk to my parents, and that they would listen, and they would share with me from the scriptures and from other things what they had learned, but they kind of allowed that to happen without me feeling like I was in trouble for having questions. And I know a lot of kids are going to go through that time where they're not so sure. And I think having the security of, okay, my parents are here for me. They want to be with me as I have questions. They want to work with me through these things. It's really encouraging, because I think your kids might be freaking out more than they're letting on the inside. I know I was, and we all were. And the great thing was I knew that they had faith that I would figure it out. And that helped me to have confidence that I could too. And we all ended up on the other side of that, and it was really victorious when we did.
I think in any family, and sometimes just depending on which child it is, sometimes there's one parent that is just easier to talk to than another parent. Or sometimes for one child, one parent is easier to relate to or to talk to or to be vulnerable with. That happened with us. I was with the children a whole lot more, and they weren't as afraid of me as they were and rightly so, of their dad. That's just normal. The way God has ordered family is that is the way children understand God. And God is something to know that He loves you, but He's also something to know, I have a righteous and godly, a right kind of fear of God. That will be with children and their dad. So a lot of times the first person that the kids would come to was me. We had to work and be so committed to not letting that divide us up. There were times I would send one of the kids to Sam and say, well, you really need to talk to your dad about this. Maybe he had hurt their feelings. You really need to go talk to your dad and let him know that hurt your feelings. But I didn't side with the kid.
Yeah.
We were still a unit. We were still married. I listened, and I would help them to go get it resolved. Sometimes I would go to Sam and I'd say, I don't think you realize he's still not over that talk that you guys had. Or I think maybe you need to go back and talk again to Alexander. Or maybe Alex hadn't even come to me, but I might say, I don't think you realize, I think that really hurt Alexander's feelings. And we were a team. There were other times he did the same to me. Jerry, don't you think you kind of overreacted? I think that was a lot of emotion talking there, more than was necessary. We helped each other. So just know that don't think it's unusual if your children, one is the one that they go to more easily, but don't let that divide those relationships.
Let's stand up and take a stretch break, say hi to somebody, but please don't make a run for it. Okay, we're going to be back in 3 minutes.